Let me fast forward a few weeks. As I began to continue to improve, they wanted to put me through therapy because they were sure I needed therapy. The neurosurgeon, who was so attuned to the entire situation, said, no, he don't need the therapy, he needs his family. Because he's seen all the significant things that had happened. He'd never seen anything that significant in all of his career. So he sent me home telling my parents, you're going to have to help him walk, you're going to have to help him to the bathroom, you're going to have to help him do everything. None of that really ever happened. I was very self-sufficient, to the surprise and amazement of everybody. But in the process of the whole event, I remember 3 months after getting there, and this was 5 to 6 months ahead of schedule, they were waiting for the swelling to go down so they could put a plate in my head. They had to put a plate in because the bone was shattered so bad, they had to throw that away. So, December 12th, 1978, they put the plate in my head. I remember coming out of surgery, and I remember them talking to me and asking me questions because they knew I was supposed to be in pain. Pain so bad that I would literally be out of my head. I had no pain. I took 1 aspirin the whole time that I was in the hospital recovering. Again, they began to question me like, who are you? Why are you here? What day of the week is it? This kind of stuff, because they were just sure that I was out of my head. No, it was the power and the Spirit of the living God that was upon me again. 3 months after that, they took me to Oregon University to survey the extent of brain damage. Because they knew my mental capacity just could not be normal. They gave me a 2-day battery of memory tests. I still remember most of the story, by the way. It was about Anna Thompson, who lived in South Boston, who worked as a scrub lady at City Hall Station. That's how it started. That was over 30 years ago. I think my memory's okay. Anyway, after the extent of exam they gave me, and it was a very thorough exam, 2 to 3 weeks later they came back with the findings. Here's another miracle. They stated intelligence above normal. They concluded that I had to have been a genius prior to the wreck because they knew I lost significant intelligence. Hello? We've got another miracle here. I attest to that. I never was a genius. I never even came close to being a genius. Anyway, there were many other miracles that took place from a physical standpoint. I remember at one point they noticed another blood clot that was forming on the other temporal region of my brain. At this time, they were kind of weary of everything that had happened, and they said, we think we'll observe this for a while to see what's going to happen. Good thing they did, because that one disappeared. It was gone. I speak about miracles. I speak about the reality, the truth of the living God and the power of His healing hand. Let me go back about 15 years from this present time, and I remember when I was at home in my pajamas ready to go to bed, and my neighbor who run a catering service drove what they call a roach coach to various businesses to serve them during their breaks to sell goodies. Knocked on my door desperately one night. He says, I know you work in the field of refrigeration air. I've got an 8-foot refrigerator down in the warehouse at Columbia Boulevard that just went out, and if I lose it, I've lost way more than I can afford to lose. Would you please come and help me? Reluctantly, I thought, okay, I guess I need to do it. So I got my clothes on, got my tools. We went down there to do the job. I remember getting up on top of it, stood about 8 foot tall, doing the job. It had a leak. I was able to repair the leak, take various pieces of equipment to accomplish that. And I remember when I was done and I was handing a drum of acetylene or nitrogen down to him. And as I did, I was sitting on the front railing. As I did that, the railing gave way. I began to fall over backwards. I yelled at the top of my lungs, God. That's the one word, most powerful prayer you can pray. And as I did that, all of a sudden I felt a hand between my shoulder blades. I literally floated forward and grabbed the back of the refrigerator. I looked back down at him and I said, "How did you do that?" He said, "Dude, I caught the drum, you were coming over backwards, and I closed my eyes waiting for the fall." There's only one explanation. God had an angel there that caught my fall.
Yeah.
Undeniable. He was there and he'd seen it. I remember another thing that happened most recently, and this happened with my dad, and there's been a lot of other miracles since then, but I'm kind of hitting the high points. I remember when my dad, about a year and a half ago, was diagnosed with a tumor in his bladder. He had blood in his urine, and they scheduled a biopsy to go in and take a piece of the tumor to determine whether it was cancerous or not, and he was pretty sure it was. I was sitting at his home in a chair talking with him, and I had a vision cross my mind, and in my vision I seen him praying for him as he laid on the couch, which he was already laying on the couch. And not long after that, he said, "Rick," he says, "why don't you come and pray for me? There's no need for me to get up. God understands." I said, "Boy, if that's not a confirmation, I don't know what is." So I got up, went over there, laid hands on him and prayed for him, and it felt really powerful. And it was. About a day later, my brother Gary took him to Staten so they could do the biopsy. They went in to grab a piece of the growth, the tumor that was in his bladder, and they couldn't find a tumor. There was nothing to take a biopsy of. Another phenomenal miracle that shouts, yes, there is a God. Yes, He does perform miracles. Yes, He is alive, and yes, He is well, and yes, He does care. Getting back to my miracle and what has taken place in my life, it's nothing beyond spectacular. I could go on with many other instances of divinity that's taken place. Getting back to the part where I talked to you about the point in time with my mouth opened, and I said, God is forever, God is eternal, there is no condemnation. I was brought up in a very rigid home. My dad was a pastor. My mother, you could say, was a pastor as well, because she helped him in many unknown ways. But I got to tell you something about God's grace, and about God's mercy, and about His love, and about His will for each and every one of our lives. There's a verse that's in the Bible that says, there is now no condemnation to them who are in Him. And I'm here for a reason. God knew about this event before the foundations of the earth were even formed. He knew about each and every one of you before the foundations of the earth were even formed, because He planned you. You're very special. He has a purpose for your life. Have you ever read the book Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren? He says something very significant that I've never forgotten. And upon reading that book, it changed the direction of my whole life. I began to step out. I began to walk by faith as He commands us to walk by faith. The Bible says walk by faith and not sight. The Bible says step out and move. If you don't move, He can't direct your path. It says, would you be hot or cold? For if you are lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth. God's very direct about that. He wants you to be active. He wants you to be in His service. He wants you to follow Him, and He wants to command your ways. The steps, again, of a righteous person are ordered of God. Acknowledge God in all your ways. In every way, He'll direct your path. That's undeniable truth.